The Origins, written and told by Rowan Morrison. The first ancestor had watched our Morag since her grandmother had held her up to be blessed by the stars that shone above Ben Cruachan. The Cailleach had watched over all her bloodkin since the beginning of time, but she favoured this yin over all others. Perhaps it was a cause of her wild nature, for as a child she was more like beast than mortal, her soul as unkempt as her wiry straw-like hair. Watching the girl run with her beloved mountain deer gave the old hag great pleasure. Morag, a plain name for someone who was anything but ordinary, almost a breed apart from other humans. Fully grown now, a lover of the land and the white bones that lay buried in the warm, wet soil below. On a Sunday, she would sit amongst the stains in the kirk and talk to the lang-time dead. This was something that they looked forward to, for they had been forgotten by Maist and Morag. She kent all the best stories. On a Monday she would awaken afore the sun rose to sing like a bird. This meant her feathered friends could hae a lang lie in their cosy nests. The cockerel was most appreciative of this, and the hens rewarded her with some freshly laid eggs. On a Tuesday, she would visit an ailing apple tree in the woods at the foot of the mountain, lay her hands upon it, and whisper secret words to its roots, so it might gents again flourish and bear fruit at the summer's end. For the young woman, she did enjoy a juicy reed apple. On a Wednesday, she would pick herbs to leave on the doorstep of anyone that needed them. She always asked the plants for permission. They always gied it, be it root, stem, leaf or flower. Every yin in the glen kent it was Morag, but nane thanked her for the kindness. In fact, she did something out of the ordinary every day of the week. As you might imagine, life was ne'er dull, but being born different isn't easy. Nay, being afraid to be different is even harder. Although she had many friends, none of them lived inside a human skin. Morag would ne'er admit it, but she often felt the sharp sting of loneliness, especially so when the moon was ripe with light in the dark sky. For its fullness, it seemed to shine inside her and find all her dark secrets. It saddened the Cailleach to see that Morag had nae mortal mate o' her ain. Ye nicked, as the old hag sat by the peat fire, she spoke to Bodach. The forefather was, like most other old men, he smoked his pipe and rarely said a word. He just nodded his head every now and then to keep his wife happy. But he was also fond of wee Morag, and had taken great pleasure in watching her strange ways. Now it rarely happened, but the oldest of the old decided to intervene, something that fate didn't tak kindly to. The Queen of Winter, she banged her huge hammer on the crags and did it none the less. Exactly 1 week later, a stranger passed through the village. This was an unusual occurrence, especially since this man hailed from fisher folk in the west, and spent most of his days out at sea. I would like to say that he was handsome, but that would be a lie. What I will say is that he was handsome on the inside, and as all the wise yins ken, this is what matters most. The fisherman's name was Callum. He had awoken a week ago, left his home, left his boat, and unable to stop himself, he headed inland. He had been walking without a destination ever since. Now it was a Sunday. Well, you ken what happens on that day of the week. Morag was sitting amongst the graves, telling her best tall tales to a captive audience of dead folk. By chance, or was it, that the fisherman passed by? When he heard her voice, he peered over the old stone wall. He should have been surprised by what he had seen, but he wasn't. The audience kent that only a kindred soul would be able to love Morag of the deer. Love her he did. Nae straight away, mind ye. She was an acquired taste, but then again, so was he. Their love first blossomed on a Monday morning when he heard her singing like a bird. She reminded him of a little bird that had yin sung at his window in another lifetime, a time afore Morag, if that was possible. It seemed to him that they had always kept each other. In turn, she knew she'd give him her heart on the day he happily sat amongst the headstones to listen to her stories with the deed. He even wrote her a poem. It began like this. I was born on the day that I first kissed you. It seemed that all was right in the world, that there really is someone for everyone, for that is the magic of love. They were both truly alive, at least for a wee while. I did mention that fate didn't take kindly to any interference in her affairs. Neither did her two sisters, for that matter. For some people, life is just lonely. And that is exactly how the spinning sisters liked it. They had each other, which meant they had little understanding of this painful human condition. They just sat and spun the threads of fate. They cared not what fortunes befell mere mortals. All it took was a stitch here or there to change the fabric of someone's life forever. Of course, it had been a mistake to tap Callum for the sea. For some men can love the water deeper than they can love a woman. The sea was in his blood, just as the land was in Morag's bones. But he was the only yin that the old ancestors could find, the only yin who could see past all Morag's strange ways, the only yin who could give her the love she hungered for. But he missed his old life, the taste of the salt air on his tongue, the smell of a fresh catch, the vastness of the ocean. Per Morag, how could she e'er compete with a watery mistress? Yin morning in October, She awoke to find her arms empty. The bed called. Callum had left her as swiftly as he had come into her life. No even a goodbye. The fates can be so cruel. Morag always kent he would leave her one day, that he would go back to sea. Another one of her strange gifts, but it didn't stop her loving him or hoping otherwise. Even though you ken something will happen, it doesn't lessen the pain. The truth is, nothing in this world or the next can prepare you for heartbreak and the great storm of devastation it brings in its wake. If Callum had indeed been born on the day they first kissed, Morag felt that she would just die on the day that he left her. Such was her grief at the loss of her lover. Upon seeing what had happened, Bodach, he scolded Bera for interfering and warned her against mere meddling, to which she replied, "If Morag dies o' a broken heart, who will tell stories to the deed or gie the birds a day off?" The old man kent his wife's mind was made up. He shook his head, took a long puff on his pipe, and said nae mair. A few days later, when Morag finally gied into sleep, the Cailleach placed her tweed plaid over the young woman's body and washed away all the memories of the fishermen with water for the whirlpool of Corraviken. Something that was nae without risk, for too much of the water it can wash away the soul entirely if you're nae careful. The next morning Morag awoke and went to tend to her beasts. The eyes of the audience watched down for the top of the mountain. Now the young woman, she did all the strange things she would normally do on each day of the week. But something was different. She seemed like her old self, yet something was definitely different. Well, the old man, he'd tell the old woman to stop fretting. I can't tell you the Cailleach's reply to this request, but upon hearing it, Bodach didn't dare speak for another 1,000 years. 9 months later, Morag of the Deer gave birth to a beautiful but very strange wee boy. She called him Callum, after his father. At last, all was finally right in the world.